Now, earlier this month, the Ministry of Works and Transport announced that appointments will no longer be needed for driver's license renewals, driver's license changes and endorsements. But an issue with crowd control has forced the ministry to revert to its online appointment system. Joining us this morning to talk more about this is Transport Commissioner, Mr. Clive Clarke. Mr. Clarke, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning, Kimberly, and good morning to your listening audience. It's a pleasure to be on your show this morning, as usual.
Now, Mr. Clarke, let's go back to the pandemic, because I know that one of the reasons for going to the appointment system in the first place was because of the pandemic. So just tell us exactly what would have been in effect before we reverted to those walk-in services.
Well, let me say it again, right? The pandemic, as we know, brought a number of new ways to doing business. And we have recognized that some of those ways are sometimes even beneficial to the organization. And one of the things, though, is that during the pandemic, we had introduced an appointment system to treat with the crowd control for many or most of our transactions. Nevertheless, we had certain challenges where persons were claiming they weren't getting an appointment, etc. So we, at some point in time, would have deployed our mobile services to assist with that. We would have ramped up appointments, etc. But we took a decision, a policy decision, via directive from management, that we will seek to reestablish what we call a walk-in service. And we would have done that over a period of time. Actually, we commenced the walk-in service since November for a number of transactions, and those were working quite well. And I want to say a number of vehicle transactions with minor permit transactions. And we did decide at one point in time that we will give consideration for an experimental scheme of reverting to the walk-in service for the driver's license renewals and for the driver's license changes and endorsements. Right. And we do know we had to revert based on the challenges we faced.
Yeah. Now, I know that you were saying that it was beneficial, Commissioner. And so if it was beneficial, then why did we go back to the walk-in service?
Right. One of the things, though, is that we tend to listen to persons' concern, and sometimes in listening, we sometimes have to give an opportunity to demonstrate that we will want to take the opportunity to experiment with in terms of bringing these services on board. I must say, however, though, our concern, though, is that we appreciate the fact that when person comes to the licensing office, our preferred KPIs is to ensure, and that's our key performance index, is to ensure that persons do not stay in the organization for service for more than 30 minutes. As a matter of fact, we try our best to work with a 20-minute span. And when we discover, when we introduce the walk-in service for driver's license renewals, as early as 5 o'clock, security were complaining on several sites that we had persons line up.
Yeah.
And we faced situations whereby persons accessing our service at 8 o'clock were still on that compound approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and therefore it is not in keeping with our standards. Yeah. We also had situations where persons were fainting and so forth, etc. And therefore, we thought it best that we revert to a system that provides that service within the 20 minutes period.
So, Mr. Clarke, as it stands now, can you tell us what services are online and what services are optional to walk in?
Sure, definitely. I'll need just some of the major ones. Okay.
Sure.
In the vehicle services, let me just use a blanket statement and say all vehicle transactions are walk-in. Some of the main ones are inspection, transfers, reclassification, application for certified copies, even such as like basically application for extracts. That's when you register new vehicles. Right. In relation to the appointments that are necessary, you definitely, driver's license renewals, driver license changes, and changes has to do with change of name, change of address, etc. Endorsement, basically if you're applying for a permit like class 1, class 2, 5, etc. Provisional permits, that's one we have no intention of opening right now. provisional permits is basically, you may know it as a learner's permit, applying for a permit for the first time, right? Well, we also know regulations, which is the written exam and driving test. Those were appointments way before COVID, so we decided to maintain those.
Right. And how does the mobile buses factor into all of this? Are those still operational as well? And which licensing offices are they available at?
Let me just say though, due to the challenges we face when we opened the walk-in service, we decided to operate the mobile service at the county licensing site for those 2 days. The mobile office was never really set up to be used at a specific licensing site, but basically was set up to go into the communities. So we do not want to allow a situation where that becomes a norm unless there is some sort of extreme circumstance that we have to deploy the mobile service. We did face some challenges in terms of the weather during the month of November, but you will see as early as this week, the mobile unit will be back into the communities. We are going into Bamboo this week on Thursday to assist persons who would have lost their permit due to flooding and so forth. So we will be back out in the community from this week.
Right. And in terms of the senior citizens, Mr. Clarke, the ones who are going to these licensing offices, do they have to make appointment services as well, or is there a special line for them when they visit the licensing office?
But I'm really glad you asked that. Senior citizens are basically allowed to more or less walk in to conduct transactions as it relates to driver's permit renewal. We try our best to identify them and give them what we call priority treatment. So there are key persons who seek to identify these senior citizens and provide that level of service. I also want to add, though, that persons who are differently able, they are also allowed to walk in licensing office without an appointment.
Right. And in terms of the documents, are there different documents for different transactions? So, for example, we know about bringing in the utility bill. What other documents may be needed depending on the transactions that you're doing?
Well, let me say, because I mean, when we list a number of transactions, each of those transactions have their unique documents, and it may probably take me all morning identifying some of those. I want to encourage persons to go to the ministry website, and if you cannot remember the website, which is basically mowt.gov.tt, simply type in Google licensing application forms, and that will take you immediately to a link with all our application forms and documents necessary to conduct our transactions. Again, you can go to Google and simply type licensing application forms, and that will take you to that link that gives you all the necessary files to download for your appointments, for your service.
Now, Mr. Clarke, can we ever see a day where a transaction will be done online without somebody having to come into the office? So basically, you can do your transaction online. Let's say, for example, a name change. You can pay to have it done, and that will be the end of it?
Yes, and this is one of the things we are working with for part of our key deliverables for next year. My intention is to bring what we call end-to-end online transactions. And for that to happen, we have to be able to bring online payment on stream, and as well as be able to provide the opportunity where we can mail some of our products to persons, if not their homes, at least a centralized location like TT Connect, even TT Post, where they could collect those documents. And let me just say on the onset, one of our major intention for next year is to bring online renewals and also to application for online and provisional permits. You will see the provisional permit system coming on stream within the first week of January. We will be testing that this week with over 70 persons, and subsequent to such, that system will be available for members of the public. Unfortunately, because we do not have online payment as a component installed as yet, those persons may need to come into the office at some point in time just to validate those documents, the original documents, against what is submitted. But that process will be one that is very short. And as we seek to digitize and bring a number of our services online.
Yeah. And as we're moving along that digitization as well, can you give us an update on that transition from permits to licenses? How has that been going?
Oh, exceptionally well. Matter of fact, persons who are renewing their permits, persons who have been participating in the service as it relates to changes of address and name, etc. Once you are conducting a permit transaction that requires an output of a permit, you will receive the new driver's license. And therefore, we have seen it and we have viewed it as a major successful initiative. And now I need to also say that that driver's license system, it is not just the output. The output is one minor component of it. And by that I mean the output, meaning the permit itself. It is the workflow and the processes that we now put in place to generate that permit. For example, that permit cannot be printed unless you participate in that workflow process. It is linked to our cash register system. It is linked to our photography system. So an individual must be present in licensing for a permit to generate. And therefore, we're talking about security, we're talking about accessibility, we're talking about the centralization of that permit information to key stakeholders like our enforcement officers, police, even our internal licensing officers. While on the road, we can now access those records.
Yeah. Now, as the system has been doing well, have you been seeing any changes, or has it been working to crack down on any of the fraud that you would have identified earlier? Has that started to happen as yet?
Oh, yes, quite easily. Matter of fact, I will tell you something. One of the things, and even going back from the appointment system, I want to point out though, in the context of when one makes an appointment for a driver's license renewal, in doing so, you have to basically retrieve your permit online to do so. And I have found many persons attempting to make appointment, and for some reason we cannot locate their permit. After interviewing those individuals, we discover that their permit would have been issued under some sort of strange practice. And therefore, we are seeing the benefits coming out of that. With the new permit itself, due to the fact that you now participated in a process, it makes it easier that I could simply say we don't expect an individual to have any problem in terms of renewing their permit in the future or conducting any transaction that requires a driver's permit. Why? Because your records, we take the time to validate and ensure your record basically is clean from any sort of issues.
Yeah. Now, I know this might be a change to what we're discussing, but I just wanted to know, I know that the ministries have been moving towards maybe a sort of work from home policy. And I'm wondering, how is that going to work in a licensing office? Do you think some of your officers or some of your staff, Mr. Clarke, may be able to work from home if that work from home policy does become available to us as citizens?
Quite easily, and let me describe one with the online permit system, which will be on stream very soon. Online service provisional permit system or learner's permit system allows an individual to basically apply for a provisional permit at any location. So you can simply apply. You can live at Point Fortin and put through your application and simply say, I would like my application to be validated in Caroni. Now, based on the fact it's a validation process, we can allow staff from home with access to remain home and basically validate those records, and therefore not necessarily have to be in the office itself. So that system will definitely allow such wonderful opportunities. In addition to that, I need to inform the public. One of the major benefits with this system is that you can now basically choose any site you wish to conduct your regulations or driving tests. So therefore, while you apply and you live in San Fernando, at any point in time, you can make the change on your own without having to write to the commissioner. Why? Because your documents are now centralized and is now accessible by any site you decide to walk in to participate in a driving test or in a regulation exam.
Nice. Well, Mr. Clarke, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Congrats again for being shortlisted for that IDB Awards, and all the best to the Ministry of Works and Transport and, of course, the Licensing Division. Thanks for joining us.
Kimberly, thank you very much. Do have a wonderful day, everyone.
And that was Transport Commissioner Mr. Clive Clarke just giving some examples about how work from home can work in a licensing context, and also some updates on that walk-in and online appointment system. You're on the Now Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.